was the earthworms, because the Nile Valley was so fertile it provided all the food for the Roman legions, including the Empire of Egypt. And Cleopatra was they were so important that if you took an earthworm out of Egypt, they would execute you. So that's how important they were. Next slide. Now, as Aristotle says, that earthworms are the intestines of the earth, which they are. And Darwin did a 46-year study on the earthworms and what they do, and his book on earthworms sold more than his book of the theory of evolution at the time, because back then they were all farmers and they were more important in feeding their family than worrying about where they came from. Okay, this is not photoshopped in any way, by the way, just to let you know. Worms come in every shape and color that you can imagine, and probably some that you can't. Okay, I'm going to go over these because these are the basic ones and explain to you why I have them up there. The one in the upper right-hand corner is called the green worm. It's from the UK, and the unique thing, upper left-hand corner. Anyway, now. What makes this worm unique, it can freeze solid in a block of ice and revive when the permafrost thaws out. Wow. So that's kind of interesting about him. The next one is called the European nightcrawler. They use it for fishing, and we do not use it to produce worm castings or worm fertilizer, because you will be there the rest of your life trying to get them to produce them. These are the red worms, or the pink worms. They are native to Florida, and they live right here in the soil. And they will produce castings in about 60 days for you. Feed your worm in, so let you know. This is the super red worm, which is a hybridized red worm for producing castings or producing the soil. We use that for composting, but there is one drawback. It's not good to use a worm that is not used to the tropical environment, because they die off at about 80 degrees, and it's 80 degrees 90% of the time. So we do not use them. Now, this is the earthworm that we use most of. It's called the African nightcrawler. They were developed by USF back in the 1970s for orange production, because they are the only earthworm that can actually process silica, which is sand. And they actually combine the sand with the natural enzymes in their body and allow you to have 60 to 70% more water retention and cut your runoff by 60 to 70% as well. So that's what makes another benefit of using organics. Now, this is the blue worm. This comes from Hawaii, and it is called the traveling worm. So we do not use them because during the full moon, they like to travel. But the only problem is they do not come back. And so I found that out the hard way. And nothing has point the aroma like a dead worm in your living room. But anyhow, this is the tiger worm. They are from Asia, but they do sell them as well. But they're a little worm, and like I said, you'll be waiting about 90 days to get castings from them. Now, this is kind of neat. This goes from the jungles of Vietnam. It is actually an earthworm that glows in the dark. It has glow-in-the-dark cells on its body. It produces its own light. And this is the black worm from Indonesia. Just showing you the different kinds. Now we're going to get into the biggest worms. And like I said, none of this is Photoshop. Next slide, please. Now, I'm going to go from the littlest. These are the 4 biggest worms in the world.
Yeah.
This one here is the gypsum worm. It is from Australia. It gets about 6 or 7 feet long. Okay. The next worm here is the Asian jungle worm. It gets about 16 feet long. And this one from South Africa was shot because it was undermining the interstate. And that's how big they get. And that can get up to 20 feet. Not Photoshopped, just letting you know. This is all the real deal. Next,
They don't hurt you.
and they can't hurt you in any way. That's what's nice about it. Now, I'm going to a little bit about the worms and what they do. Worms do not have live birth like a lot of animals do. They have what is called casings or capsules. They look like little amber footballs in your earthworm bin. And in each one of those little capsules, you can see how small they are here. And they're an amber color, and they vary shape from round to almost football shape. There's between 5 and 20 worms depending on the species. And inside of there, and they hatch out in about a week. Now this next step, we call these threads. Now when they first start hatching out, they will look like threads from your shirt. And they'll be white in color, but just like any newborn, you don't want to handle them right away. You want to wait till their skin changes color to the pinkish color you see there. He's about a week old there. Now, worms are hermaphrodites. They do not need another worm to survive, which makes them so successful. They reproduce by rubbing up against each other. Okay, you can tell a worm is ready for breeding because they will develop a white collar around their neck. And that is when they are adults and of breeding age, which will help you when you are restocking worm bins and things of that nature. So, worms have between 25 and 175 segments that you see here, and they are solid muscle, and they move through the soil by microscopic hairs on their bodies called setae, and they're like little grappling hooks, and they go through and their mouth is like a vacuum. Next slide, please. They breathe through their skin like we do. And next slide. They have, what's unique about the earthworms is they have 5 hearts. They are the only land animal that can regenerate. So if you cut an earthworm in half, you're not killing it. They can live fine, but the only problem is they can't have babies. So you probably don't want to do that too much if you can avoid it. But they will survive just fine. Now, what makes them very unique and also very good in composting is the way they process the soil. Now, the earthworm is like a big vacuum. He will suck it in his mouth. He will grind it with grinders that are inside his body, and they grind the sand and the soil to the point that it breaks down to its natural elements and minerals. So your plant does not have to do that. And this is where you get your big harvest from your plant, from your tomatoes and things like that. Because the plant doesn't have to work at it, all the nutrients are available to it, ready to go. Also, inside the earthworm, they have 147 different microorganisms that are key to growing your plants. Each one of those microorganisms acts like, let's put it this way, you can have all the nutrients in the soil you want. It's like having the car parked in the garage with no gas in it. This puts gas in the car so it can go from your soil to your plant. And that puts it real simple so I don't have to get all technical and drive me insane. But what's nice about what it does is diversity. The more diversity, the more of those little guys in there that you cannot see, the microbes, the better your soil is going to be. And the more nutrients and the more diversity that you can grow in your garden. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. And here's another myth that I just want to share with you. Nematodes. Everybody talks about how bad nematodes are here in Central Florida. The thing about it is, 90% of them are good, 10% of them are bad. And what's nice about remember we talked about the microbes just a minute ago, what these microbes do, they will eliminate the bad nematodes, especially like your root knot nematode that causes you a bunch of problems. This is why your plant only has 2 lemons on it, only gets about 2 feet tall, because that's the root knot nematode clipping the roots. Now what will happen is the microbes inside the earthworms and inside the castings that we talked about will sit at the roots, and when these guys come and try to eat the roots, they will eat them. That's what they eat. Something always eats something, as Darwin says. So, next slide, please. It's me. And when I first started out in my business, I was broke, of course, and I needed to figure out hire two men and get that man to get up at 1 o'clock in the morning and help me sieve castings. Well, that wasn't happening, so I built it out of junk, and this little thing right here will do 300 pounds of castings every hour, and so that will solve a lot of problems. Like I said, it's made out of 55-gallon drums, just drums you see on the side of the road. So, if you got a little know-how, you can do stuff like that.
Now we have another one.
Now we got a one better than that now. But anyway, the 2 products that we talked about the worm castings. Now I'm going to talk about the other product. The other product is called worm tea. And the worm castings aren't a problem. They aren't an issue. They can last forever until you're ready to use it. As it's good about it, there's no expiration date on the castings. The only thing is, you got to keep them dry. That's it. Other than that, they will last 6 or 7 years. We've had somebody forget about it in his garage. I always use this as a test to tell you guys. I had him forget about it in his garage for 7 years, and then he came back and used to know his tomatoes and he told me how great it was. So that kind of spoke for itself for me. But the tea that we're talking about here is another thing that is brewed with the castings and rainwater. See, there's no garbage in any of this. There's no chemicals in any of this. You don't have to worry about the burning effect that you get with a lot of the other products. And what this will do, everything that crawls lives in Florida. We all know that. So let's get that out of the way. So suppose, for example, you're in your garden and you have your mealy bugs over here causing you a problem, your black spot over here, and you have your aphids over here. Well, the thing about it is, you spray this on it. Now remember we talked about the microbes earlier. These microbes that are activated in the water from inside the earthworm will go after and they will eat the collagen or the skin that off the white flies, the spider mites, and they're actually small enough to get into the pores of the leaves and take care of your black spot, your black mold, even the tougher things like scale. And you don't have to worry about what's resistant to what, because this isn't a poison, it just doesn't kill the problem. These guys eat the problem. I always say spray it once, wait 3 or 4 days, spray it again. The reason why you space it when you use this, if you want to kill the adults, then you want to kill the babies that follow. So, if you do that, you shouldn't have a problem. Okay, you can use it on just about anything. Cannot burn, like we talked about before. You can use it on anything from your grass to your palm trees to your $300 spider orchid that you're afraid to put anything on because you know it'll burn it. You don't have to worry about it because the Orchid Society uses this for that reason. It also will, like we mentioned with the tea, will address some of the real bad problems like thrips. Thrips is very hard to treat because they only live 2 days. So you got to treat it within that 2 days or forget about it. But you spray it once and it'll take care of that problem for you. Because like I said, they'll go right after their food and they'll eat the thrips. And they are small enough to address the microscopic problems that you got. So what's nice about this is you can have it on the roses and with the trace elements will brighten your blooms, will brighten your orchids, without the residual effects of the phosphate and the burning problems that you get with a lot of your other orchid mixes. Now, if you use your castings, if it's in a medium, and if it's in soil, if it's hanging, air plants, some of your bromeliads, some of your vandas, things like that, you do a direct feeding with the worm tea. Okay. And we talked about the agents and the different kind of pests that are there. The problem is, as we advance, so to speak, we have used a lot of chemicals. And the chemicals have made better bugs that are resistant to a lot of the poisons. For example, you spray aphids with whatever pesticide, say 7 dust, and it kills them off. The babies that hatch out will be resistant to it. So that's where you get a lot of the problems, and it happens that quick in the next generation of bugs. So this will eliminate that problem that gives everybody a headache. Because, like I mentioned, these are just not a poison. This is something that actually addresses and eats the problem. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, now leaf curl is another one. Now leaf curl is one that you cannot see that goes inside the leaf. Now if you spray the plants, like I mentioned with the worm tea or the castings will go in there and give it the nutrients to uncurl the leaves, and you will save probably about half your leaves from dropping off your plants. Kind of works that way. This is the black spot that everybody has seen once or twice, and you spray it once with the worm tea, and wait 3 or 4 days, and it washes right off. You don't have to worry about it. Because like I said, they eat. Okay, this is white flies. Now the problem is, you can kill the white flies, but you never get them all. So the thing is, it will kill the adults, and like I said, you wait for 3 or 4 days, like I mentioned, and it will kill the babies as well. So it will not come back. Like when you have a bunch of aphids that you can't control, this will take care of that problem for you as well. Now the powdery mildew. Powdery mildew is one of the things that they will tell you is completely untreatable, which it is, because you cannot treat it with any poison or any chemical. But what you can do is, like I mentioned, with these microbes, you can spray the leaves, and they will go in the pores of the leaves and cure it from the inside out, instead of just sit on the leaf. So it addresses this particular problem at its source. Now, these are mealybugs, and everybody's seen them at least once. And like I mentioned, you do that the same way. You spray it once, wait 3 or 4 days, spray it again, and it will take care of the problem, and the plant will start healing itself, which is nice. You won't. This is root knot nematodes, and this is what they look like. And this is the reason why your plant cannot grow, why your plant only gets about 2 feet tall, that we talked about, and only has 2 lemons or oranges on it. So, in order to solve this problem, what you do is you take the worm castings, you go around the base, like in a circle, cover it up, water it in, and you will not have that problem on your plants. I did a little video using worm castings and not, and the difference between the eggplants were usually about, the production was 2 to 1, because of the root knot nematode. In Florida, Central Florida, and South Florida, it's not what you can see, it's what you can't see that causes most of these problems. Next slide, please. Now, we talked about how to feed the castings, do your plants in the ground, like so. Your plants sticking out of the ground, make a little circle all the way around the base, cover it up, water it in, wait about a week. It takes about a week to get into the plant's, system, and then you'll start seeing the results you're looking for. Don't get excited if it drops leaves, because what it'll do, a lot of times, a lot of your plants will drop the leaves to put on a new flush of leaves. Okay, now the worm tea, you don't have to get under the leaves or do anything weird like that. Now it smells horrible, but it works good. I don't know why that is always the case, but do it downwind, it's 98% effective on any problem that you have. But if you don't mind the smell for a half an hour. Now you spray the top of the leaf, you don't have to get underneath it and get all nasty or anything like that. You just spray the top of the leaf, and these microorganisms will go after their food. So that's kind of convenient for you. And that's it. I'll take any questions you got.